If you are a neurodiverse professional or entrepreneur, whether that's ADHD, ADHD, OCD, none of these D's, just you know that your brain works differently than most people. And you've ever felt held back because you want to create consistent momentum in your life, but every time you try to stick to a schedule, you sabotage yourself with this belief that you're just not that type of person. And it's keeping you stuck in the same cycles instead of making the progress that you know you are capable of. Then you're going to want to stay until the end of this video because I'm going to break down the most important step you are going to need to take in order to resolve this. Welcome back to the Neurodivergent Superbrain series, brought to you by the 25-Hour Day. My name is Colin Response, internationally award-winning performing artist, entrepreneur, and global ambassador for the #1 luxury brand in the world. But most importantly, I did all of this with what most people call ADHD and obsessive compulsive disorder. I disagreed. And so I built a business that's helped now over 150 neurodiverse entrepreneurs and professionals rewire their brains from feeling overwhelmed by a lack of time, energy, or clarity to become masters at executing their ideas profitably and efficiently so that they could add an extra $10,000 to $20,000 a month to their income while cutting their working hours in half, ultimately so that they could enjoy living a balanced and fulfilling daily life in the process. And today, I am blessed to be joined by our guest. Fedi is a neurodivergent entrepreneur and a martial artist who's born in Quebec City, presently in Egypt, and has been all over the place. And today, I'm going to show him why he is stuck so that he can be empowered to decide whether or not he wants to permanently remove these barriers from his life. And like usual, I'm going to do it while walking backwards. So without further ado, I'd love to bring on our fantastic guest, Fed. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm blessed, man. I'm blessed. How are you?
Amazing, blessed, and highly favored. I have your submission. And the first thing we're going to do is just start by having you read it aloud.
I'm Fedi. I cannot seem to get myself to stick to a schedule. I've tried many times. Even when a project or schedule truly excites me, I feel held back by the belief that that is just not me. How can I set my life up in a way where I can overcome this obstacle and actually have consistent momentum and progress in the most relevant and highest ROI way that tends to my holistic well-being and my self-actualization?
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I know there are a lot of people watching this who are high performing entrepreneurs and professionals who are thinking, yes, there are elements of me being the highest version of myself that I'm not having the easiest time maintaining access to. So if that resonates with you in any way, I encourage you to type the challenge you're facing in the comments because one of you might be invited on for your own episode of the Neurodivergent Superbrain. This episode is going to significantly benefit those folks who feel like their general state of being is in a higher frequency state and they're really looking to unlock that next level for them. First step we're going to take is we're going to break this down. We're going to start with the 4 places that I identified. We have cannot seem, I feel held back, the quote that this is not me, and then how I overcome this obstacle. Now, there's a bridge that's happening in between where a lot of your challenges are living and where your communication, your self-communication is shifting. Right here, this is the bridge.
Mm.
Talking about the problems, we're talking about the solution. And then here we have the question, how can I set myself up in a way where problem, like we want to remove the problem. However, we are now associated with the negative umbrella here. Versus if the question was, how can I set myself up in life in a way where I have all of these things, which is what comes afterwards. How can I set my life up in a way where I can blank have consistent momentum and progress in the most relevant, highest ROI way that tends to my holistic well-being and self-actualization? Powerful question that we could break down, but that would be ignoring this element. How can I set my life up in a way where I can overcome this obstacle? Well, what is the obstacle? Well, now we're talking about obstacle, which is not what we want. We actually want the outcome, the solution of that, which is not just this. It would be the polarity of the obstacle you're facing, which are these things that we need to discover so that we can define clearly the aspect of your obstacle that is not characterized by these other things you mentioned, because that is the piece that is interfering. So let's go there. Now, you can't seem to stick to a schedule. How would you prefer to feel?
I confidently enjoy doing what I set out to do at the times when I set to do them.
Perfect. When I say perfect, what I mean is very clearly the polarity. Every aspect of this cannot seem confidently get myself, enjoy doing, stick to a schedule, do what I set to do at the time I set out to do it. For the people who are watching this, you'll start to notice in yourself, does my brain already do that? Because if you watch many episodes, you'll see varying times between the amount of time it takes for somebody's brain to take the negative and switch it into affirmative. Now, this still wasn't exactly where we wanted to go, but you can tell stick to a schedule is still in the affirmative, even though he's saying I cannot seem to, which means his brain is primed in that direction. Doesn't mean that he's going to have absolutely no things that he's looking to accomplish. It just means that the things that are going to be interfering for him are going to be a stage later. But I like to make sure we clarify the difference between affirmative language and positive language. It's not just about saying, oh, this thing's good. Negative language would be me saying, oh, I feel like shit right now. Whereas affirmative language would be me saying, oh, I do not feel well right now. So you see, I'm communicating the same message, but the language I'm using is anchored towards the outcome that I want to produce, which is different than saying, oh, I feel well right now, because I'm not saying I feel well. That's like me saying I feel like shit and me saying I feel well. Those are two completely different things. But I feel like shit versus I do not feel well is the nuance that I want you to be clear on and everyone else here watching to be clear on when I say the difference between affirmative language and positive language, which is usually associated with positive affirmations. You can navigate your life using affirmative language without this toxic positivity, like emotional bypassing, like thing going on, because it's not going to serve you. However, most people think that to talk about the things they do not prefer or enjoy, that they have to talk about them and anchor their brain to the thing they don't want versus anchoring their brain to the thing that they would enjoy or prefer. And you can see it even in my language as I'm saying, anchoring to the things they hate or anchoring to the things that they do not enjoy. And if you pay very close attention to my language, you'll notice that I'm constantly doing this. So the difference between hate and I do not enjoy or I do not prefer, or the things that they do not want. Now, some people will see want as that's the thing that they want, but in reality, like wanting is in this desire frequency state. So wanting is actually an emotion of not having, which is actually an uncomfortable emotion. So typically speaking, I'm going to be anchoring towards enjoy. Now, I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, so we're going to bring ourselves back here, but I felt it relevant for the folks watching who are practicing getting themselves to even this stage and connect to the people who are at this stage to see what we're talking about as we go a little bit further. So, Freddy confidently enjoys doing what he sets out to do at the time he sets out to do them. And he's tried many times. What's the opposite of trying many times?
Hmm. The first thing that comes to mind is trying a few times, not trying at all. But at
Mhm.
the same time, not having to try is another thing. I just do it on the first try or first attempt. Effortless, I suppose.
Awesome. Now you're going to see why I took the time to share the things I shared before. I've tried many times, and we're looking for the polarity of this. So right now we have I've trying a few times, but here's the issue here is trying.
Mm,
Trying is the problem because trying is we're not achieving the thing. And then
mm,
we have not trying at all, not having to try, right? So if you look at how your brain is associating with what you're saying, you understand, like, and we can like understand what we're talking about. That's not how our brain communicates. Your brain sees the subject matter. It sees try, try, try. Regardless of what you're saying with the try, all of these mean the exact same thing as this. Try. Now, we have moved one step further when we say, I do it. Okay, great. So now we're moving towards the outcome, which is I do it. And beside that, we have first attempt, which is another way of saying try. An attempt is a try. So when I said before that you're in between both lands, you're certainly not here and you're familiar with this, but there's a space in between here that you can see in your language patterns. And what it ends up doing is it has you where you do not prefer. And as you start to move your way towards what you prefer, you find yourself back to what you do not prefer. And again, effortless. What is this? What is your brain here? Effort, right? What would be the polarity of this?
mm.
Ease.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so if you look at all these attempts and tries and tries and tries and tries, what is the polarity of trying many times?
I can't, I don't know, the word flow comes to mind. I flow easily.
Okay. Any other words come to your mind?
Um, Succeed.
Bingo. To succeed is the polarity of to try. Now, of course, one could say, well, isn't the opposite of succeed to fail? Sure. But if you look at what you're subsupposing by the statement, you're not saying I tried all these things and succeeded. That's not why we're here. It's because you tried those things and you were unsuccessful. But even as I share that with you, did you notice my language? I said you tried all these things and you were unsuccessful. I did not say you tried all these things and you failed. And these are my natural language patterns by design. That was the default. And when you're able to wire your own neurology, that these language patterns become your default, you will be at a massive, invisible advantage. So many things will transpire toward you. But as I say this, if I didn't explain this, you wouldn't notice any difference in my language, really. Unless you are queued up and aware of that, then it becomes very, 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 very obvious and becomes very obvious why my brain is constantly operating in ways that are in service of me. So we want to identify the places that are contributing to the dis-ease you may be experiencing. So I have succeeded many times.
I succeed many times.
We can feel the very obvious difference between these two things, right?
Mm.
And it seems simple, but I want you to think about the fact that as we sat here, maybe it took 3, 4 minutes to get there. It's not like it took that long, but it certainly took long enough that if you're operating in your everyday life, that's not what your brain is going to. Your brain's not sitting there for 4 minutes. It's not even sitting there for 60 seconds to think of the language or the pattern that's coming up. It's going here. When the default that comes out is this, you're going to notice something different will happen. Something different, like the questions around how can I set my life up in such a way where I confidently am doing what I set out to do at the times I set out to do them. What steps can I take that would cause me to succeed multiple times?
Colin, can I shed light on something?
Absolutely, please.
So I'm feeling this block. I'm feeling this block as I'm reading the statement. I have succeeded many times. I don't know how to best describe it. It feels like an entity. It feels like a belief system. It feels like a block, for lack of a better term, basically calling me out on trying to do this work and trying to rewire how I am. Almost as if it's saying something along the lines of like, who are you trying to fool by telling me this? You know, almost as if I'm trying to trick that part of me, and then that entity, whatever you may call it, is pushing against that, me trying to fool it, if that makes sense. And it feels like, well, like I'm all of a sudden I'm not even present. I'm not even hearing what you're saying. I'm so busy focused on, nah, I'm trying to trick myself here, you know?
So I have have a massive shit-eating grin on my face because that's exactly what you will experience. This is because we haven't gotten here yet.
Okay.
I feel held back by the belief that it is not me. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Do you think that it's possible that the belief that it's not me, not just in the context of it being a belief, but based on what you've learned so far of how your brain imprints information for how your brain will operate based on the language that we use, do you think it's any surprise that given that this is the language of the belief, that as you go through these things, that this is the language that is coming up to move you away from these things?
It comes as no surprise.
So, based on your discovery around these other things and shifting them into the affirmative, do
Mm.
you think it would be possible that if this language about your belief, even if it wasn't even in the positive, but it was in the affirmative, I have this belief, I can't accomplish anything I imagine? Like if that was the belief, do you think that the language of the narrative that would spin in your head would be slightly different, even though it's not telling you that you can do it?
Yeah, I think it would be tremendously different. I feel like the
Yes.
emotion with the belief of that is not me or the language pattern of that is not me, it's immediately I'm distancing myself from that desired result versus having the belief that I can't, if that is the belief, I can't accomplish anything that I want. Well, it's like all of a sudden I'm focused on anything accomplishing anything that I want. That's what I'm focusing on.
Yes. Yes. And I wanted to give this to you as an example for you to actually see it's not about the context. That's not how your brain's processing the information. It's
Mm,
processing the information based on emotion and the subject matter. So, what I would say is emotion and information. That's what creates retention because our brains are pattern machines. When it goes into the emotion, it thinks, what are all the other experiences I had in association with this emotion? That's what it's doing. So that's why when you say, I can't accomplish anything I could possibly imagine, your brain can't do anything other than think of
mm,
accomplish anything I could possibly imagine. Now, is it more productive to say I can't accomplish anything I could possibly imagine than saying I can accomplish anything? Obviously, it's more effective to say that,
mm,
but it's important to understand what is the primary factor that's impacting the shift in your neurology. And it's the affirmative language. It's not the positive nature of what you're doing, or else nobody would have this challenge. But
mm.
now you're seeing that as you take the steps of, I can confidently enjoy the things I have to do, I've exceeded many times, that what comes in to interfere with it is something else that's following the same patterns as the things that preceded it. It's the next thing in line. Because we're saying, even when a project and schedule truly excites me, right? I'm confidently enjoying what I'm doing, what I set out to do, at the times I set out to do them. I've succeeded many times, especially when a project truly excites me. And then, but I feel held back by the belief that this is not me. What we're reading here is literally what just occurred. Literally. So now it's time for us to actually look at this belief and discover what the polarity of these two things are. So we'll start over here with being held back. What do you feel instead of being held back?
Empowered by.
Empowered by the belief. And what is the belief? That is the polarity of that it is not me and what all of that means.
I'll tell you the resistance that I'm having to saying I can accomplish anything I want. It's just like, well, anything, it's like the overly rational, logical mind that all steps in and says like, ah, no, you can't, you know? So I feel like maybe empowered by the belief that is me, or that um I can stick to a schedule.
Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing all that honesty. So there's two parts of this. One, you don't have to use the language of I can accomplish anything I want because that was just simply an example for me to
Mm,
share with you the function of affirmative language so that you could see it in practice. Now that was just my language,
mm,
right? That might not be resonant with you. With that said, there are things to be said about what you said in terms of the block that's coming up. Because as you come to these things, the things that are standing out, you're like, I can stick to a schedule. That is me. It's buffering for this belief, right?
yeah.
Like it's like, well, this block is coming up, and therefore, because this block is coming up, I should accommodate myself to this thing, right?
Mm,
Now, there's no sense in doing this because we don't need to do this. We don't need to work against it. We just need to understand what's happening. You're saying I can do anything I accomplish. Let's first choose language that's actually resonant with you and is not my language, even though it's the thing that the block comes up for, so that we can actually address the one that's relevant.
okay. So on that, can you actually change I can't stick to a schedule to I stick to my schedule? The reason being is I feel like the I can is feeding into this idea of a potentiality versus a reality. So I feel like this is a lot more resonant. I stick to my schedule.
Okay, cool. So that would be your polarity to the belief that this is not me.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because it's in the context of what we're talking about. It has to do with you set out to the things you said you're going to do. And now you're empowered by the belief, which was at first a belief, but now it is the fact that I stick to my schedule. Now we have this. Now the natural thing that's coming up, probably this. Well, you don't stick to your schedule,
Mm.
right? So how are you this? And correct me if I'm not correct, but has that come up for you in any way as we wrote that down?
Yeah. It's like, well, my brain scans for the track record and it validates how the fact is not a fact.
There you go. Perfect. So the same thing your brain did here in terms of scanning is the same thing your brain was doing here. The only difference is your brain has scanned so many times for this. And so it has established a default scan for this. So as you approach anything, I'm confidently doing this, and I have to say, it's going, well, Well, what about all these other things? But the important part of this is not that it's scanning, but why it's scanning. It's scanning because this is the only language you had before for that scan,
Mm.
if you will. This was the pattern, like the belief that was imprinted in your neurology. Even the fact that you didn't want it was like, I keep having this experience where thing I don't want. I can't seem to stop thing I don't want. Every time I go to do this thing, I'm almost there, and then thing I don't want. Your brain has been impressed upon this, and not just passively, but with significant emotional arousal. And if emotion and subject matter creates retention, what do you think is happening every time you approach this and you're frustrated that it's happening, or that you're upset that it's happening, or you were so close and you have all this disappointment that it didn't happen, or the grief from the thing that you lost? All of that emotion tied to this information says to your brain, oh, this is important. Better find more. This, I'm empowered by the fact that I stick to my schedule, now can become something that is not an obstacle to be overcome. How can I set my life up in a way where I can be empowered by the fact that I stick to my schedule? How does one's brain say that is not me when it's not a claim? It is a question. It is asking for possibility. It is opening up your consciousness to find the solution. So what comes up for you, Bailey?
Emotion, man. Emotion of joy. I think that's the biggest thing. The joy, optimism, excitement as well. And like immediately I visualize a schedule that fully serves me, you know, that honors every aspect of me, that makes me feel like giddy about, going about it and sticking to it instead of, my past self would feel a lot more as like, shame, uh, frustration, anger. Part of me is like, why even dwell on that? Let's just focus on the reality, the fact that I am empowered by the fact that I stick to my schedule, and ideas come to mind. But at the same time, that silent voice in the background is still saying, are you sure? You said that last time, Um, but it feels different. It feels like it's simpler this time. It feels like I'm more aware. So already I feel more empowered.
Beautiful. Now, what you said is super important, which is, well, geez, there's that little voice that's back there, right? He's still there. He wants to come out. He wants to say, I was right, bitch. What the reality is, that's because of how you were approaching the analysis of the scenario.
Mm,
So I feel held back by this belief that this is not me. So this is the idea of like, it's an assessment. Is this me or is this not me? Like that's the assessment. But what if this doesn't need to be you or not be you for you to ask the question? Because
mm,
like you said, many things come up that say like, oh, how could this be possible? Interesting. And the more you ask this question, instead of how can I overcome this obstacle, the question becomes, how do I set my life up in a way where I am empowered by the fact that I stick to my schedule?
mm,
Oh, well, that's not me. But I didn't say that it was me. I'm asking a question. What would need to be necessary?
mm,
And as you start to answer those questions of what would actually need to be necessary, you realize that it's not relevant whether it's you or not. What would be necessary for me to be a professional basketball player? I'm not a professional basketball player. In fact, I suck at basketball. But I start to wonder, and well, what does a professional basketball player do? What makes them professional versus intermediate or amateur? Like, what are the factors that differentiate their behavior? That starts to create more specific questions that would open up the door to what are the actual factors that contribute to this versus a belief about my identity, because the identity is irrelevant whether you're the person who does it or you're the person who doesn't do it. If you don't know what makes it easy for people to feel empowered to stick to the schedule, you'll never be able to do that regardless of the belief or not. The question has to precede your ability to do it. And this here, this belief, this is not me, is interfering not with your ability to do it. It's interfering with your ability to ask the question. We're trying to be, this is me, and I'm amazing, and like have all these empowering beliefs. We're skipping a step here. Like that's
mm,
not the that's not the reason why you can't. You don't know what steps would be required in order for it to be easy for you specifically. which is an impossible question to ask when this is your declaration. I feel held back by belief that this is not me. It's not even a question. It's just a statement.
How is my language actually popping up? You know, what is my natural language pattern? Especially when I'm feeling frustrated, especially when I'm feeling hopeless. How am I feeling? How am I thinking? I want to write that down because I want to make sure that I have this opportunity to rewire, you know, the questions I should have asked and rewiring my memory, just doing the exact same thing with my natural language patterns. And making the habit of asking the right questions in the way that is most empowering to me, such that eventually, basically, that voice is more or less suffocated out. The intention isn't going there anymore, it's going elsewhere. And I'm experiencing building the proof. So when that voice comes up, how am I addressing it? Is it like, ah, I have this thing and now I'm stuck there? Or rather, how can I reinforce or how can I empower myself? Okay, so this actually applies to many other things. So let's say for the sake of argument, there's this other quote unquote issue that I tend to experience where I'm speaking very quickly. And as a result, people don't always understand me and they don't take me as seriously. Instead of saying, ugh, I can't seem to get myself to speak slowly, it's like, well, how can I easily speak at a relaxed cadence in a way that empowers me and facilitates a stronger connection with the people I speak with? Okay, now all of a sudden the attention has shifted. This was powerful, Colin. Thank you so much, man. Thank you, 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 man. For real. I knew this was gonna be powerful, but I didn't. I don't know. It just ah, I'm very grateful, man. I'm feeling a lot of gratitude.
This entire series is to expand people's awareness to the reality that their capacity is far beyond what they presently think. For them to be able to, even for a brief moment, taste what it can feel like when you know how to leverage the way that the neurodiverse brain naturally works. What we just went through is like a grain of sand on a beach in comparison to what is possible for you when you know how to leverage the way that your brain naturally works. So if you are watching this and you have gone through cycles and you have paid for courses, programs, mentorship, therapy, tens of thousands of dollars across your lifetime, and you still have the same challenges to resolve, then click the link that is in the description to this video, because I have put a link to one of our free masterclasses so that you can see what is possible for you when you learn how to leverage the way that the neurodiverse brain naturally works. Unfortunately, our enrollment is currently at capacity, but if you're somebody who wants to add an extra 10, 20K a month while cutting your working hours in half, ultimately so that you can live a balanced and fulfilled life as the highest version of yourself, then please do yourself the favor and watch the free masterclass, because it is possible for you.
It's powerful stuff, man. It's powerful stuff.
For everyone else, I'll see you on the other side. Thank you for your honesty.
Of course. Thank you for having me on, man.
Thank you, Fetty.
Thank you, guys.
Always in a state. Every moment you occupy.